Hello everyone, I'm Daniel. I'm here with SuperPang99. We are talking about 1,000 Shapes of Horror scenario number, let's see, how do they call it? 2B?
To be.
2B or not 2B? Let's take a look at the haunted house scenario in the Dream Eaters. So take it away.
So we are at this is some weird lore. We're at a house called the Unnameable, which is the house, but also some other things as well. I think this is the story, right? Like
Yep, I think so.
something like that. So this house is called the Unnameable. We're here because like there's a key to the Dreamlands that we can use to go and help our friends potentially. And Randolph is taking us here.
It's a
That's pretty
MacGuffin.
much the story. Indeed. Um,
Yep,
not a real key though.
no.
Anyway, that's basically it. So why don't we go to setup? Setup for this one is actually pretty straightforward. We have a bunch of locations out, and we're gonna start at the burial ground, I think. The little graveyard, spooky. And then we just have an encounter deck and some set aside stuff. And our objective is a very nebulous: go find a way into the Dreamlands, figure it out. You have to figure out exactly how to get there. We don't know right now.
I kind of like it when they do this and just say things like find another card that says how to advance, just because it's not, I mean, obviously you are walking around getting clues, but it lets you do the exploration first and foremost instead of worrying about some other objective.
I kind of like it too. Yeah, it's a really cool, especially in the blind playthrough when you're like, what does that mean? And it just, encourages you to like explore and figure out stuff and try and do things, stuff like that.
Well, we've said it all along. The Dream Eaters campaign itself is a very strong blind playthrough, and yeah, once you already know what you're doing, then this one plays out well the same
It,
way.
yes, indeed. So why don't we talk about the locations? Because
Mhm.
basically all of the objective stuff is on the locations. So let's start at the burial ground, which is where we're going to be starting. Four Shroud, one precludes. It has victory one, very nice. It has this very interesting text. Each ghoul enemy drawn spawns at the burial ground instead of its normal spawn location. So basically, when you draw a ghoul, it goes here instead of being spawned with you, or indeed spawned anywhere else. It always goes here.
It's flavorful, but it's also makes it really easy.
Yes, yeah. It's just like there's a bunch of enemies piled up here.
Yep.
Um,
You just
so
you know this right away, so you just leave.
indeed. It also has this free triggered ability. Investigators at the burial grounds spend one per investigator clues as a group to remember that the investigators noticed the missing bones. And this will definitely be a thing throughout the scenario, is to have people remember things. And hopefully, that is an indication that you should probably be doing these things.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's two clues here already, so feel free to do it right away.
There you go. All right, we walk up to the house, to the front porch, and we can do some stuff. So we can spend one per clues to reveal the upstairs hallway, mainly because the upstairs hallway currently has the text that we cannot enter there. So that's the way to get upstairs. And there is this also free triggered ability, which makes zero sense. If the unnameable has one per investigator or more damage on it, smoke trails off the creature, leading to the tomb near the center of the cemetery outside. Put the set aside unmarked tomb location into play. There's like three words in there that make zero sense
Hmm,
at the start of this campaign.
it's true.
This is the scenario I mean.
Yeah, and this is like one of the limitations of Arkham Horror, the card game. Sometimes they kind of have to do this where they're telling you what happens later. And yeah, like spoilers, there's going to be something that's called the Unnameable coming out. But
Yes.
I don't know. Maybe there's more clever ways to get around this, but they can't always hide information or abilities on other cards that easily. So
Yeah, it would require either another copy of the entryway that like got replaced somehow, but that's like kind of convoluted, or it's like the text is on the agenda when it flips spoiler because that's what causes it to show up.
mhm.
So it'd be weird.
But they want you to do it here, right? On the
Yeah,
entryway.
exactly. Right. It could be like the entryway gains,
Yeah.
etc. Right.
Yeah, they
It's
could.
just a mess.
Yep,
It also has so much text already on the agendas.
it's true. All right.
All right. All right, we got two downstairs doorways. In theory, you don't know what they are, but there's only two of them. So let's see what this one is. It's the parlor. Two try, one precludes victory one. For each investigator at the parlor, it gets +1 shroud, so don't crowd around too much. And another triggered ability about the unnameable, two per investigator or more damage, and you can recover a strange key.
Okay.
Okay.
I just
And
realized that
secondly,
should these be like shuffled?
in theory, yes,
What does it say in the
because
setup?
it does not. It just says to put them into play.
Hmm.
And I think that I can't actually recall. You remember in Dunwich when like they put the back hall doorways or whatever
Yeah.
into play? I don't actually think it tells you to shuffle those either, but
Hmm. Okay.
we got the den, force route 2 per clues, victory 1 as well. Reaction, after you successfully investigate the den, you can discard a card from your hand to discover an additional clue. Basically, any card can be a deduction if you want, which is actually pretty nice. Um, and you can spend 1 per clues here to study a desecrated portrait. Again, so maybe they'll be useful. We don't know yet.
Sorry, let me just finish the thought from earlier. The reason why it probably doesn't say to shuffle is because it's just you're putting them into play. But in TTS, right, it's always putting them
Yeah,
in the same spot.
exactly.
So
Yeah.
anyway, that might not be true in the future because I need to think about changing that. Anyway, yep, okay. Cool. Yep. More victory
Cool.
points. Everything has victory.
Everything is victory, and also some weird things we need to do. Let's head upstairs, and we can spend 1 per clues to put the attic into play. We can do that, I guess, after we visit the upstairs doorways, of course.
Yeah, there's a lot of clues like to do these things already, but you're never. I mean, it's worth saying. Like, do you just like get all the things and then move up, or do you spread
Yeah,
out
that's
and try to do as much as you can, or what?
pretty much what I do. Is like, especially with the parlor, you can maybe split up. It's going to be 3 shroud when someone's there,
Hmm.
obviously. But you can just do that. Someone else can go and handle the den or whatever, and then keep on moving on.
Yeah. All right, let's look at the other ones.
We got the bedroom, 3 shot, 1 per victory 1. Double action to discard all non-weakness treachery cards from your threat area. Interesting. And then you can spend 1 per clues to find a cracked mirror. I don't know what that does either.
Did we have another way of doing that yet?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
And the second one, we have 1 shroud, 1 per clues, victory 1, the library. Additional cost to investigate the library. You must either lose an action or take a horror. Kind of annoying. But you could spend 1 per clues to put the unmarked tomb into play. So currently we have 2 ways to put the unmarked tomb into play, which is nice.
That's right.
And finally, if we spend our 1 per clues in the upstairs hallway, we can get the attic, which is over here. Oop. And in the attic, we can spend 1 per clues to recover a strange key. So we'll note that we currently have 2 ways to get a strange key, 2 ways to get the unmarked tomb, and then we have these 3 other things, which is finding a cracked mirror, studying a desecrated portrait, and noticing the missing bones, which is in the burial grounds.
That's right. Okay.
Yep. And those 3, legitimately, you have no idea what they do until later.
Yep.
Yeah. Do you want to advance the? Do you want to go to burial grounds, or do you want to advance the agenda?
Let's advance the agenda. By this point, since there was only 5, this should have happened.
Yes. And things will now begin to make sense because here it is. It's the unnameable. I believe part of the story is that like the house is called the unnameable is because it's the monsters inside the. I don't know. It's actually kind of nebulous. I really don't know. Anyway, so it spawns in the attic or upstairs hallway, meaning that if you have both of them out, you can choose which one you want to put there, which is nice. And it has a lot of text. It has aloof and hunter. It cannot be defeated. And for each of the following which are true, the unnameable gets -1 fight and -1 evade. And it's those 3 things: finding a cracked mirror, studying a desecrated portrait, or noticing the missing bone. So the more things you do, the easier this thing is going to be to deal with. Namely because even though it has aloof, there is going to be some things that are going to happen later on / right now. Um, that makes it rough.
Okay, so
Okay.
indeed, Agenda 2A, there's some cool stuff here. So, 1, each swarm of rats gains swarming 1.
Yeah, they did
They did
it.
it back-to-back campaigns, making the swarm of rats really cool.
Yeah, pretty cool.
And then
Yeah.
this forced effect that you're kind of alluding to at the start of your turn, if it is ready and at your location, willpower 2. If you fail, you're going to get dinged for 2 and 2.
Yeah. That is a lot. Notably, it does check if it's ready. So in theory, someone could engage it and then evade it if they really wanted to have people avoid this check.
Mhm.
But there it is.
Yeah, so I find that this one, if I'm building decks, I'm thinking a little bit about this scenario. Like, can someone pass the willpower test? If not, then I think this is pretty rough. But if even one person can, you can say, okay, because this is a hunter, you can have it follow that one investigator who can pass the test, and then everyone else can be in a different location.
Yeah, and they can basically just stay where they are with the unnameable. The unnameable will just hunt to where it is already
Hmm.
and just stay there, and you can just like, okay, I'm soaking it all, or passing the willpower test, of course.
Yep. Uh, but since it is aloof, though, if you do want to do the two things that are how much damage is on it, you do need to engage it.
Yep.
It'll be easier to fight if you've done those other things.
Honestly, I don't understand why you would ever do that. There's already the clues you need on both of the places, and they have victory one.
Right.
Just get the clues.
Yeah.
Seriously.
I feel like this is like some sort of a bone to throw to the fighters or something, like they to make them be able to advance the game state a little bit, but
I guess so.
it's not worth it, right?
Not really.
There's no upside to that.
Yeah.
There is, as we'll see in a second, some other reason to put damage on this guy, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep. All right, let's put the unmarked tomb in play. So that's going to go down here, connected to the burial grounds. And once you see here, it is another victory one location, 3-shot, one per. And here's an objective. At the end of the round, if each undefeated investigator is at unmarked tomb and the investigators recovered a strange key, advance the act. So do the two things that you have to do, and then be here at the end of the round. Notably,
Yep.
it doesn't say May.
Yeah, this is a one of these things where you want to time it right so you get the victory points off of the location before you have to advance.
Yeah, kind of annoying.
Yeah.
Honestly, you really should say you may advance.
Yeah.
Something.
So
Anyway,
you walk down here, you throw your dynamite to the burial ground, get rid of all the ghouls, and then someone can clear out the clues. Because everyone has to be there, I think it's a little bit more annoying in higher player counts.
it's true. Yeah, there's going to be people all over the place. They have to walk all the way back and stuff like that.
Yeah. Okay. Shall we advance the act then?
Let us advance the act. Yes. So, into the depths, we are able to go down a giant staircase. So, we put the unnameable aside, keeping everything on it. We remove all of the locations from the game, putting the victory ones in the victory display if they had no clues on them. So, that's nice. Investigators not defeated. Other enemies and attachment locations discarded. Yep. Shuffle the set aside mysterious stairs locations and put 5. Yes.
5.
5 into play, and we remove one of them from the game, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And we put everyone and the unnameable at the topmost mysterious stairs location and reveal it. And the mysterious stairs are connected in a line going from top to bottom. There's going to be, I guess you remove some encounter cards, locked door, and the secrets of the attic, and then we shuffle in another set of encounter cards, the endless descent encounter cards. And we got to get to the bottom. Yeah, the bottom location has an action to resign, and everyone needs to resign. And that's our scenario.
13 minutes. Let's go.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's look at these locations because they are in a random order, and each one allows you to or gives you some stipulation on resigning or moving, I believe. So let's check them out.
Let's check it out. So 4-shot, one per. This one, you cannot resign or move from it if there are clues here. So you got to get the clues first.
4 shroud, but at this point in the game, you should be able to get them.
Hopefully.
Again, with a higher player count, this is like a lot of a timing game. Who do you send first? Who's going to still be there? All that kind of stuff, because there's it's a hallway or a staircase that you're walking through.
Especially in higher player counts, you're going to have a higher chance, obviously, because this is going to have like 4 clues, for example, with 4 player.
Mm-hmm.
One person most likely is going to have to remain behind, so got to make sure that they can handle the unnamable's willpower check, because that is still relevant on the agenda.
Mm-hmm. We will advance the agenda in a sec, but we'll look at some of these locations first.
Yep. All right, next one. Oh yeah, this one. So when it's revealed, you move the unnameable to it, just in case you thought you were ahead. And you cannot leave this location or resign unless the unnameable has 1 per damage or more on it. I said it in the exact opposite way that the card says it. But yes, you need to deal at least 1 per damage to the unnameables to be able to do stuff.
As I said before, it keeps the tokens from the first part. So if you did 3 per, or sorry, 1 per or 2 per or whatever, whatever it was asking for, you just, this is free.
Yeah, exactly. All right, next. So, in additional cost for you to move or resign, you must discard 1 or more cards from your hand with at least 2 instances of the same skill icon among them. Hopefully, not so bad.
I hate this one, actually.
Okay.
It's not the worst one.
No.
But sometimes you're like, I don't have any cards, or they're not the right ones, or whatever it might be. But, usually you should be able to pick this up. We'll talk about this in a second, about why I think this one's harder. Because it's not really this card alone.
Right. And as a reminder, though, wild icons count as matching anything, so that can contribute.
Yep.
Which is nice. All right, next. Okay, so this one, you put 1 per resources on it, and as an action, you have to test your lowest skill against a difficulty of 2, and if you succeed, you discard a resource from this location.
This one is the hardest one.
This one can be pretty bad, especially if you have investigators that are have lopsided skills or at lower player counts, for sure. 4 players, usually this isn't so bad because there's kind of some variation. Even though you're always testing your lowest, 1 investigator might have their lowest only be 2, and then other people can commit to it.
That's true. 1 person can do all the work, whereas the other one, the one we just saw, everyone has to have the requirement.
Exactly.
Okay. It is interesting that so far, and it'll continue to be true, you don't need clues for anything. So your, clue getters are like, what do I do?
Indeed.
Maybe this. Okay.
All right. 3 shrouds. So while there is a ready enemy at this location, you cannot move or resign. And forced. When this location is revealed, you search the encounter deck and discard pile for a ghoul enemy and spawn it here, shuffling the encounter deck. So not only is a ghoul gonna spawn, and you'll have to either defeat it or evade it in order to do stuff, but the unnameable can be a ready enemy at this location, so you'll have to evade the unnameable as well.
And there's one more location. Okay, go ahead.
Yes. I was just gonna say, that one could get kind of hairy. I've seen that go pretty bad.
Yeah, it can be a little annoying, but I do feel like that's maybe a 1 action.
That's true. Albeit, so the circumstance that I found happened is that you're at the bottom and you're like, okay, let's evade the unnameable and 1 more enemy, and someone resigns, and then in the mythos phase you draw another one. You have to evade 3 enemies now or something like that.
That's true. Yeah. If you can't finish this off in the same round that it appears, it's a little tougher. Yep.
Exactly. All right. Yeah, and we do have 1 more that we didn't put in, but might pop in. And this one is just after you enter here, you lose an action. That one's okay.
Yeah, I think you can also, if you've seen it or it's probably coming or something, you can time it right.
Do you want to talk about this one?
Sorry. Talk about...
well, it's because when you resign, you put all of your clues down.
Oh, yeah. If this is the last one. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. That's annoying.
Huh. I don't think that's ever happened to me.
No, yeah, it's weird because you just have to make sure that you either order it correctly or make sure that only 1 person gets all the clues.
Right, that's what's happened.
Because if multiple people
me.
Get it, then you'll have to drop them, and then someone picks it up and then goes in.
Yeah. Okay.
I honestly don't think that was intentional.
I agree, and I think it's pretty rare that it ends up being the last one. It's 1 out of we'll
I guess there is a circumstance in which it might be the last. Yes.
Yeah. Let's talk about that now. I think it's worth. So there's an encounter card. There's 4 copies of it that we've been alluding to again. Yeah. Let's move up here. Called Endless Descent.
Yep. So this encounter card, there's been many discussions about this encounter card because it really sucks. I had the idea that it would have at least victory 0 or something. But essentially, let's read it together. So, when you draw it, move each investigator and enemy at the topmost location to the location below it. Flip the topmost location to its unrevealed side. Discard all tokens and attachments from it, and place it below the bottommost location. Shuffle the positions of each unrevealed location so you cannot tell which is which. add this card to the victory display. Okay, so it has victory 0, right?
Mm-hmm.
The thing I wanted was maybe give it victory 1. That would have been interesting. Anyway, so essentially what this does is it takes this top one and it puts it at the bottom. And anything that was at the top one just gets slide down, so you don't get to cheat, right? Effectively, it reduces your progress by 1 location wherever you were, unless you were at the top, of course.
And it requires you to do some of those things. Well, the one that was at the top again.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's the part that's really tough. So if you've already eaten your ability to pass a low or difficult skill test, basically for your low skill, then you have to do it again. Or if you've already, used a bunch of cards to discard for that one location, you got to do it again.
Yep. Notably, the one because all of the locations except for the other one that we didn't talk about are about leaving the location, so you're basically always going to have to do it again.
Mm-hmm.
And even technically, in theory, right, the one that makes you lose actions, that does technically still happen. So
That's
like
true.
you'll start the investigation phase with 2 actions, right? Which is kind of weird. But I think the main thing that people find annoying about this card is that it doesn't scale well with player count.
It doesn't.
Because if you're at 4 player, and there's 4 copies of it in the deck, you basically have like a 30 card deck at this point. Actually, a little bit less because you remove some cards.
Some cards, yeah.
You are gonna hit this a lot. I've once hit this twice in a Mythos phase. That was really annoying. And it kind of just sucks because you're like at this point like just get me to the bottom, like it's just annoying.
And it really is different if you don't hit them. So at lower player counts, it's kind of a breeze to get to the bottom if you don't hit. If you hit 1, I guess that's fine, but like hitting 2 or 3 is really annoying.
Yeah, at least like they had the foresight to make sure that this added to the victor display, so there is a maximum of 4 instances of this occurring effectively.
Mm-hmm.
But it still makes a massive swing whether or not you had to do 5 of these locations versus 9 of these locations.
So in your experience, is there enough time to just sort of keep doing this in this scenario over and over again if you've drawn all 4, assuming that you don't die for other reasons?
So I think if you really know what you're doing, it doesn't really matter. Like the first agenda has 5, the second one has 6, and I think the third one has 7.
Mm-hmm.
So that's 18 doom total, which is a lot. And that's like I think they kind of account for that with this endless descent stuff. And obviously, if you play the scenario before, like you basically can finish the first part of the scenario in like 6 to 7 turns. But in your blind playthrough, and you're like meandering around, by the time that the third agenda comes around is when you're finally down here. You can actually run out of time pretty realistically, especially in 4-player blind.
All right, let's take a look at the back of the second agenda since we haven't done that yet.
Yep. Basically, all it does is it shuffles the entire discard pile into the deck.
And then
I don't think actually is too annoying.
No, that's fine. And this time, Swarm of Rats have Swarm 2.
Swarm 2, but the Unnameable now loses aloof and gains massive, meaning that attacks opportunity are a thing, as well as it being annoying.
Yeah, everyone still has to do this test. I think it's fairly typical to get here. It makes it easier to evade them.
That's true.
But yeah, that's a good reason for you to do all 3 of the tasks in the first part.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I quite enjoy a lot of this scenario just because I think it's kind of fun, it's interesting, it's thematic, there's lots of cool things to do, but I do dread this stairs thing.
Yeah. And really, again, because it doesn't really, well, it does do something, right? Someone gets kidnapped. If you can't get it down, I think that's how it happens.
You don't get the key.
Oh, right, and that is an important bit if you need to do something specific.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you got to do this if you want to do that. Albeit, if you don't want to do that, it doesn't matter.
So I believe if everyone dies, you can advance because it says if each undefeated investigator is resigned, advance.
That's true.
Except for the person who resigned, right?
Right. Someone has to resign.
But if two people resign and one person dies, then you advance the agenda instead. Sorry, dies by the agenda advancing. That's what I meant to say.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, because this one goes straight to resolution 2.
Right.
Yep.
And that way you do not get the key. So you do have to time things right to be able to get everyone either dead, sorry, one person resign, everyone resign, or you just want to avoid advancing the agenda, basically.
All right.
So that is the resolution, I guess we could talk about. Or do we do what do we usually do at this point? I forget.
Let's talk about the resolutions.
All right, let's do it.
So R1 is the resolution if you succeed. So you get to the bottom and you can enter the Dreamlands for real. So actually, it turns out this campaign you're both on the dreaming side.
Yay!
But not actually. You don't go to the same places. Anyway.
Well, except one exception.
That's true. Resolution 1. So Randolph survived. That's good. And you possess the silver key. So you can add the silver key to your deck, which is this card. Honestly, it's pretty sick. It's whenever you would take horror, you can exhaust it to cancel one of that horror. That could be very useful for a lot of investigators, for sure.
And pretty sick icons, too.
Indeed. All right, and you're in Victory X, which can be a lot, I think. Let's see.
A decent amount. It's not a huge amount because they're all Victory 1 locations.
Yes, that is true. So I think it's only Victory 7 total.
So not as much as Search for Kadath.
Right, definitely. Let's see. We're gonna add another skull, which is indicative of us entering the Dreamlands, which is nice. And then we go to the appropriate interlude after this, and/or scenario. R2. So R2 is if you lost the agenda. So, actually, I think.
Oh, maybe you do get a key.
No, I think it tells you how you lose it.
That's right. Yeah, you lose the key.
So that's just flavor text. So, but that's right. If you get the key but fail, Randolph still survives. That's the important part. Victory X, skull token, move on. Yeah, R4 is if you didn't even get the key, and then Randolph dies. Rest in peace. Not actually. But basically, yeah, Randolph just dies.
Okay. All right, let's finish up the scenario stuff. The scenario reference card gives us something also kind of neat. So -1, -3 for skulls if you're at a graveyard location, which is the whole rest of the scenario. These are all graveyard locations, as well as the actual graveyard and maybe the tomb, probably. So it just scales basically with where you are in the game, except for the very first location being a -3. just don't stay there. Yeah.
Yeah, just don't stay there.
The cultist token actually kind of spooky.
Yeah.
All right.
Failure attacks you.
And then tablet elder thing +2, which is pretty neat, but I don't think that does much in this scenario.
No, I guess not. Albeit, in theory, you could evade
the swarm of rats. Oh, right? Okay. Then unnameable, yeah, you could. Yeah.
Yeah, if you succeed by enough, I guess.
Yeah. And then I don't think the other thing is a big deal either.
Nope. Honestly, you're gonna have so many clues anyway, and you're spending them all the time. You're fine.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. The encounter sets, though, a little more interesting.
Yes. All right. So up top here are encounters scenario specific. So we have the indescribable apparition. Put into play in a third area. You get -1 to each of your skills while the unnameable is at your location, and the double action discarded. So I mean, this is a reason why maybe you don't want to have one person just deal with it, because they could get this and then you kind of suck. But I think it's fine.
Yep. It's haunted.
It is haunted. Glowing eyes. So you put into play in the third area. At the end of the round, take a horror for each card in your threat area to a maximum of 3 horror, and you discard glowing eyes. So obviously, this is a card in your threat area, so you're going to take a minimum of 1 in theory. It's a really cool card. I like this. Honestly, I wish they did more of this stuff. It's like cards in your threat area stuff. It's cool.
So swarming cards count here too?
Swarming cards, I guess so. Those are cards. Yeah. And also your weakness, if it is a treachery weakness or an enemy. That is a card in your threat area.
Yeah, in other campaigns that have done something with this, they usually say something like non-weakness card in
Yep,
your threat area,
makes sense.
but this one does not. Okay.
All right, Deceptive Memory is another card in your threat area. Forced after another card enters your threat area, choose and discard a card from your hand, and as an action, you can test through power to discard it. This one could get pretty annoying, I'll have to say, because you're going to be discarding a lot of cards throughout this scenario.
Yep. So this reminds us that there is that location that says 2 actions get rid of everything that is in your threat area.
Yes, I just want to double check. That does say treachery, right?
I believe so. Yeah. not swarming rats.
Cards, yeah, they're funny. Anyway, all right. Next, we got the Secrets in the Attic. Revelation, you test through willpower. If you fail, you take a horror, only one horror, not for each point you fail by, and then you put it into play next to the agenda deck, and you cannot trigger free triggered abilities on locations. That's the way that you advance the scenario. So basically, it just blocks you for a round.
Yeah, that's fine. I think you just once you've seen this once, you just realize there's no reason not to trigger the abilities on locations when
Exactly.
you can.
Yep. All right, we talked about Endless Ascent already.
Yep. So the
And
rest
we
we've
have-
seen before in some shape or form, I think. Oh no, we haven't seen these.
We have not seen the Gas and the Gugs. That's right. Honestly, why the heck? How the heck is the Gug in this house?
I don't know.
But it is here. Anyway, so we have 3 hunting gas, which are 2/3 enemy humanoid monster gas. It's a humanoid. Ooh. It has hunter. It has prey most damage. Forced. After hunting gas enters the location with a Gug enemy, ready each Gug enemy at its location and deal 1 damage to hunting gas. Has this ever happened to you?
Nope.
Me neither. That's so rare. I'm pretty sure they put that there almost entirely for lore purposes.
Yeah. Importantly, this is not a ghoul. This is a ghast. So don't forget that it will not spawn in the graveyard.
Correct. So that being said, one circumstance I can think of is if the lumbering Gug is exhausted during the Mythos phase, which is feasible, and you draw a hunting gas, that is it entering a location with a Gug enemy, and therefore it would do the stuff. So that's maybe works.
Okay. That could happen.
That could happen. Anyway, we have a lumbering Gug here, 4/6/2. After it exhausts, it does not ready during the next upkeep phase. It deals 2 and 2. That's a lot of damage. Handy note though, in case you forgot / didn't know, enemies after they attack in the enemy phase exhaust. Meaning that if this thing actually is able to hit you, it will double exhaust, which can be useful.
But it still will be engaged with you.
Indeed. So Trish Scarborough loves the shit out of that.
True. All right. We did see Night Terrors before and Glimpse of the Underworld, which actually makes a little bit more sense in this scenario than the previous one.
It's true.
And then Threads of Reality trying to... Well, it's interesting because this one is like some asset hate, and we already have that with Crypt Chill too. So
Indeed, there's a lot.
yeah. Okay. And then there's the aforementioned ghouls from the core set. I always like it when these guys show up.
Yeah, I like it too. And this is not the only time they show up in this campaign either.
And very true. Is there another time that they've shown up since like Carcosa maybe?
Since Carcosa, no. I believe it was the catacombs.
Yeah, Pallid Mask, yeah.
Pallid Mask, yes. I believe that was the last time they showed up. So it's been a while.
I wish they use core set cards more than they do, but they've done a better job recently. They're in the last couple of campaigns.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, prominently in one of the Scarlet Keys scenarios.
Okay, Crypt Chill, yeah, Obscuring Fog. Yes. That's pretty easy in this one too.
Yep. Nice thing about Crypt Chill, at least, is that if you have an asset with Threads of Reality on it, you can get rid of it with Crypt Chill.
Yes. Because it is attached. Yes.
Yep. Nice. And it doesn't do anything when it gets unattached.
That's right. Unlike Vice and Villainy from Return to the Circle Undone. Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Locked Door will go away at the middle of the scenario, or last third, I suppose. And then the rats have some swarms, so that's cool.
Yep. I really like the last campaign, obviously with the secret name, we had the swarm of rats grow in size by increasing their health. And I like how they were able to do it in this campaign with a campaign specific mechanic of swarming, and it's a swarm of rats. Of course, it makes so much sense.
Hmm.
So good.
So they're almost identical to the swarm of spiders, right? Because they're also
Yep,
113
I think so. It's
ish.
either that or one word 1-2, or I
I
forgot.
think it's like X maybe, but it's
Oh yeah, that's right. It
they
is
come
one one
in
X.
with three, so it's almost the
Yeah,
same.
makes sense.
Anyway, yeah, all right. It's a perfectly fine encounter set. I think it's interesting with the threat area stuff, but it doesn't feel pretty impressive. I think it's just cards that you need to pay attention to a little tiny bit, but nothing
Yep,
that's gonna wreck your game plan.
indeed.
Cool. Uh, hmm. What else?
I think that's it.
All
Unless you
right.
want to talk about the interlude.
We do need to talk about the interlude, but let's do that after we give the rankings. I think that makes more sense.
Sure.
Okay, so we've got some ratings to give, and we will do that now. Yeah. So one thing for replayability, which we've kind of talked about a lot with this campaign, it's worth restating why I personally think that replayability is important for this game, and why I think that 3 meters should have, or would like to see a return to that shakes things up a little bit. It's not just because the second time you play, you know exactly what to do. It's because this game really does get better the more times you play it when the pathway is not just, you know, doing the same choices. I like playing different investigators, right? I think that's always shakes things up and the randomness of encounter cards is good. But after a few, I don't know, after a little bit of replaying a scenario when you know exactly what's going to happen, it gets a little dull.
Yeah, I basically am in agreement with you, especially with this scenario. I think that, the previous scenarios that we've talked about in this campaign, they had, they were linear to a certain extent, but there were always sections in them that had freedom. The first one, you can kind of just do whatever you want in the woods. The second one, you have the whole hospital to yourself. You have like the stairwell with those three connecting locations. And then, with Search for Kadath, you basically get to choose where you want to go. And, even within those, there was pretty linear, but there were some choices you had.
Mm-hmm.
This one is very particularly on rails for sure. Um, the last part of the scenario is a literal train.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I always say little train. This is in reference to Essex County Express. Um, and so, yeah, like as we've said, this campaign has a great blind playthrough, but this one really kind of suffers in the replayability aspect.
And I get that some
Um,
people say, hey, I bought the game to play once. My friends aren't going to play it with me again. But to me, the value in Arkham Horror and a lot of the community really does replay a lot of these campaigns. So, yeah, sure. I mean, if you play these campaigns just once and then move on to a different game, I don't know if you're watching YouTube videos that are an hour long talking about different scenarios. It's just that the game did such a good job of this up until now that it,
and I think,
yeah.
yeah, I was gonna say, I think that the real unfortunate aspect of it is that this campaign is structured in a way that could make things way more replayable. The two mini campaigns instead of the full eight scenario long campaign.
Mm-hmm.
And what that means is that if you have a shorter campaign, like if for people who are like, oh, I'll just play it once and be done with it, this is the perfect place to be like, oh, that was short. Why? It's like, let's play it again and try to do different things. But these scenarios don't really let you do that.
Yeah, there's no
Um,
different route here. The tokens may be different from the interludes, but it doesn't track anything different than that, other than something we'll see later. But it's not like your objectives are going to be different. It's not like the encounter deck is different. Doesn't feel like at this point in the campaign that those choices matter. Yeah,
so with that being said, I'll put it at a 1. I'll be the brave
I was
man
going to do
here.
1.5 before you said anything, so I'm just going to stick with that. The only thing
Perfect.
that this
Sounds
one
good.
does that is slightly interesting is you remove one of the stairs.
Yeah. And I guess the randomization of the stairs too.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah. Okay. let's move on to fairness. So this one, has that random element at the end that we did talk about, and hmm, you can't do anything about it.
No, yeah, and it's tricky. I think that it's kind of weird. The first half of this, or first two-thirds of the scenario, I guess, is very fair. The scenario is just letting you do stuff. You go at your own pace, deal with the problems as they present themselves, but there's nothing too pressing. And then the last third is like, oh, remember how you thought that you forgot that the agenda deck has a doom threshold? Yeah, you should probably pay attention to that now. Because if you're going in, we were like, well, we have 4 doom left. We're
Hmm.
not getting down there.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. Hmm.
Um, so it's interesting because like it definitely for like okay, so this is what I've always felt, right? Is in your blind playthrough, it's your blind playthrough. But I've experienced this scenario with you know me who's played this scenario before and 2 other people who have never played it, and you know in your blind playthrough it's fun to like take your time and like explore the stuff, and then I'm like, we need to get to the thing now or we're gonna lose. Um, so it's really interesting because there's like both sides are very different in that aspect.
That's a really good point. I haven't thought about it quite like that, that if you don't know that you have all that pressure coming up, then it feels kind of unfair. It's like, haha, you better move as quickly as you can, but you had no indication that that was the case before. Sure, the game can pull that kind of thing every now and then, and it's not that bad. But I think that the endless descent makes it meaner than it probably should be,
Yeah,
because it's adding a card that you didn't see before.
yeah. Okay, so with that in mind, I'm gonna mark it kind of yeah. Okay, I'll mark it in the middle. I'll put it at a 3.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm at a 3 here for
because
2.
yeah,
Hmm.
because the beginning is like it's fine. Like literally, just go through the beginning as fast as you can, and you're good.
Yeah, it reminds me a little bit of the finale of Edge of the Earth. I don't want to talk about it too much because we're not reviewing that campaign right now, but it also has like this two-part of the scenario, but that part is much shorter, I would say,
Yeah, yeah,
and doesn't have this kind of gotcha speeding up of the scenario.
yeah. I agree with you.
Okay, let's move on to balance.
Um, well, you know, I think there's kind of just stuff for everybody. Obviously, I think that it's a little unfortunate at the end that the Cloovers kind of don't really do stuff, but they can do some stuff at the bottom, like with the actions on those that resource location, for example.
Hmm.
Um, I do feel like sometimes the fighter's job in this scenario is kind of skewed. Um, because they're the things that you kill are the gas and the gugs and the rats. There's usually not enough of those, and the unnameable, like sometimes the fighter is the guy who's like, all right, I'll just stand here and take a hit. Everyone else leave before this guy comes to me. Um, so like they have a role, but it is an undefeatable enemy in this scenario, so that does kind of skew things somewhat slightly.
And it's weird that the enemies that they otherwise might be wanting to kill spawn somewhere else. So you're like,
Right,
do I
I
go
forgot about
there
that.
and like, do you go there and kill them now, or you just wait till later? It's just strange.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot more sense. Like the urgency with the enemies is removed, like half of it is removed basically. Um, but usually fighters are built to deal with the urgency of the enemies. So
Hmm.
yeah, it's interesting. Um,
Otherwise, like it does allow you to, like we talked about before, advance the objective if you uh put damage on the unnameable. I guess that's cool, but it just doesn't seem like it's the kind of balance that we've talked about being so good for the game.
the option though, it is good.
Hmm.
Um, so I think with that in mind, I'll put it at like a 3.5. I think is where I'm landing right
All
now.
right, that sounds good. 3.5 for you. And yeah, I don't really have any reason to deviate from that. We'll go with 3.5. All right, last one is the overall experience. Is there a new and interesting gameplay loop? I do kind of like the dance with the unnameable to some extent.
Yeah, and I also like, as you said, the open objective of trying to find your way down.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like, they could have easily on the act said like, you know, uh, objective. If each investigator is at the burial ground and you've found the silver key, then advance. And you'll still have to figure out how to get the silver key and how to get the burial ground open. But the fact that the objective is on a card on a location is really cool, I think.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Um, yeah, and like the house that you're going through is cool. I think that some of the effects on the locations are like, okay, I can see that. Like you're in a library, so it's harder to search through all the stuff you need to find. And it also has some nice flavor text about like what you're doing when it's like, you're see a glint of silver,
Mm-hmm.
recover a strange key, or seeing you know, stuff like that. Um, but yeah, ultimately, I don't think it's too strong, but there's some good flavor notes.
Yeah, so as I said before, I kind of enjoy playing this one for the most part because it doesn't put up a whole lot of resistance. And I do enjoy kind of this idea of going through the haunted house and doing all the things.
Yeah,
But it
yeah,
doesn't feel it's not it doesn't feel special enough, I think, in the Arkham horror canon.
no, and I think that definitely part of that is that the gameplay loop in this one is kind of just okay, nothing special, and it doesn't feel like it doesn't feel like you're exploring a new space. Everything feels very like, okay, we're going to the attic, and we're going here now, we're doing this stuff.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, okay, so with that in mind, I do like all the lore stuff. I think I'll put it at a 3.5 also.
All right, I'm gonna put it at a 3. I
Yep.
think it's just sort of average. 3.5, I
Yeah.
think, is still very reasonable for this one too.
Uh, Proposal,
Sure.
right? So if they had more cards for this scenario, slash if they did return to Dream Eaters, it would have been really interesting. Have you played the board game Betrayal at House on the Hill?
I have, yeah.
That'd be really cool. Like I've always actually wanted to see that board game in this game somehow, and this would be like a perfect opportunity of like you have to like go upstairs into the thing and you find the envelope there. You have to go to the basement. It's like there's a lot of stuff you could pull from that. I think it'd be cool.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things they could do beyond just like here's some more staircases.
Right.
There's some extra locations that they could even make the house a little bit bigger. Might be fun.
Yep.
Okay, well, we do have to talk about the interlude, so let's run back over there. This one is fairly short, right?
Yeah, it's not necessarily short because there's a lot of reading to do, but mechanically it is fairly straightforward.
All right.
So we are on the side. Okay, what side? Yeah, so we're on the campaign B side.
Mm-hmm.
I would say you always have to check which campaign log you're checking. Um, so couple things. First, if Randolph did not survive the descent, then you no longer can have the Black Cat have a hunch because Randolph needs to survive in order for that to happen. So
Mm-hmm.
cross that off. Second, if you ask for it. So this is the thing that at the beginning is like you can just reject reading all of the interludes and be like, okay, screw it, and you can just ignore everything. And in this case, it would just skip the interlude, go straight to the next scenarios. That's what these things do. Additionally, and this is the bullet point up at the top here, top right, is that if the Black Cat has a hunch, it wanders off before you can reply, and you will proceed to the next part of the interlude. That is the quote unquote special path throughout this campaign, and you have to have chosen that option in the previous interlude in order to get this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if none of that happened, then it presents you with the same choice. You can tell your companions that you are in trouble. You can tell your companions about the underworld and and basically have nothing happen. Or you can tell your companions that you are safe and they and that you can make their thing easier, right?
Yep.
Okay. Ultimately, all this does is it moves where the tablet slash Elder Thing token is. The good one. It's either on this side, it's on the other side, or it's nowhere. Or you say like remain, like keep it there, basically.
Right.
Um,
Which
and in
usually happens
fact,
for me, I think. I've usually figured out at this point that one side is a little stronger team, and the other side needs some more help.
Indeed. I believe that at this point, you can get 2 of the helpful ones. Is that right? Black guy is on your side. Record the black guy's side. Add 1
No, I think it's
for
always the
both.
same. Because if the black cat is
That's
always at
right.
your side, you make
Yeah,
no
that's right.
changes.
Yeah. So that's right. Yeah, that's right. So yeah, there's only 1 of each possible. Yeah. Uh, that is the interlude, I believe. It just flips that either one way or the other. Or that's right. You can do if you share the knowledge of the underworld. That's just it. Just removes the help from either side. And oh yeah, and there's this one. If you share the knowledge, you can know of another path. Right, and that is important for the ending. Technically, yeah,
Yeah,
it is.
if that matters.
If that matters to you, yeah, exactly. That
Yeah.
one doesn't necessarily matter, but anyway,
Okay. Yeah,
I
all
think
right.
that's it.
That is this scenario and the interlude. So next one is going to be Dark Side of the Moon, which we'll talk about next week, and that will be from the other side. Uh, Strangely, we are recording these. We usually do 2 at once. So this time, this one went first. So usually we have less to say for the second scenario we record, just because we're like, oh my god. But this one's kind of short because there's not much to say. Next week, though, we'll have more to say for sure. All right, see you next time.